Welcome back. It's awesome. 844-729-7469. Why is it awesome? Because Gene Pastula, CFP, is in the house. Hello there, Gino.
Hey, how you doing, Ray?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, I don't know if you heard my little presentation before you came on board, but I talked about a lot of things. But let's start with this one, the 5 best places to park your emergency fund by Rebecca Lake at Smart Asset. And she says the following, and your particular product, by the way, is not on here, so you may want to call Rebecca. We call her Becky around here. Online savings accounts. I wouldn't know how to do that because I'm kind of, challenged when it comes to doing anything online, although getting a little bit better. Money market accounts, no penalty CDs, treasury bills and savings bonds. So far, they pay about how much interest, Gene?
I'm talking lower or less than 1 on almost every one of them.
Less
than a half.
Of 1,
yes.
yeah. And then the final one was mutual funds, which you can't, obviously you can't compare a stock mutual fund to an online savings account. So how that got in there, I think, when you write these articles, it doesn't sound good if you say the 4 best places to park your emergency fund. It's always better the 5 best places. And I think you would add a 6th one. What would you say?
Yeah, well, the insurance industry obviously has several products and strategies to place idle dollars, if you will, and accumulate money, safely and tax efficiently. So I'm sitting on now this is a little bit old, but for example, many years ago, I put money into an annuity that had a kind of a unique and aggressive interest rate at the time, but they had in it a minimum of 3%.
A minimum guarantee.
A minimum guarantee
never go
of 3%.
Below 3%.
Yeah. And what the interesting thing was is that annuities have some restrictions in the sense that if they're going to give you more money, they're going to want to make sure that you keep it there for a certain period of time or what have you. And so you have I like to call it a prepayment penalty, because a surrender charge is negative, and a prepayment penalty, everybody has those on their mortgages. And it's the same kind of thing. In other words, we're going to charge you a little bit if you want to take this out early. But the interesting thing about this was that after, I think it was 5 years, there was no penalties, no charges, nothing to take it out, and you have a minimum of 3%. I have now the equivalent of a tax-free money market account that pays 3% interest while I have it in there. And I can put money in and I can take it out and I can put it in and I can take it out. And so I think that should be at the very top of that list.
Now, it's funny you mention that because my cousin Al, who's 70 now, but years ago when I was a broker, this probably goes back 10, 15 years, he pulls out this thing, I think it was from American Express or one of the credit card companies, and he had the exact same thing, except his minimum guarantee was 5%. And he said, I only have like $2,000 in this thing. I was thinking about cashing it in. I said, whoa, stop. Can you put more money in? He said, well, I don't know. We looked at the contract. He could put like $25,000 a year in or something like that. I said, we have got a really good deal here. That was even before the interest rates came down. They were probably 3-4% then. Well, interest rates came down, money markets to 0-point-something%. He's still getting 5%. And I recall another company, which will remain nameless, and this was back in the year 2000. And interest rates on their annuity contracts were something like 6% for 6 years or 7% for 10 years. And we took advantage of that, with the clients. It's safe money, pretty high interest rate. It was a little bit higher than CDs at the time. It wasn't significantly higher, but that particular contract, and it still exists today because I know a lot of people that still have it, had a 4% guarantee. And it wasn't until some years later that the insurance company woke up and said, ooh, we never, ever, our actuaries never anticipated interest rates going basically to 0. And so people that have those contracts are sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah, and of course, the insurance company isn't hurting on that either, because when they invest money to back those kinds of products, they invest very, very long for those minimum guarantees. So yeah, they're probably not making a lot of money on these on these products that are still in force from those days right now, but it isn't killing them. I guess my big point, because obviously you can't buy those today or put money in those today, but the point is that I've been doing this now for 40 some odd years, and looking back at the time, over the time, what I've seen is that with the ups and downs in the markets and the hot deals and the not so hot deals and the losses and all that, you put all that together, you know what? The money in insurance contracts does okay. I mean, it's a respectable return, not totally unlike what you end up with or can end up with in the volatility and all the rest of the situations that you get in investing money. Clearly, it's not going to do as well as the potentials of the stock market long term. But considering there's no downside and there's your guaranteed access to your money and all the rest, they make a very viable. They should be definitely on that list.
Well, here's, I read something from, I think it was Think Advisor or Michael Fink or one of these, propeller head dudes or one of the people that write for that particular publication. And they said something I thought was really compelling. And that is that it's time for insurance contracts to have a place, a recognized institutional place in the asset allocation model. It's been ignored for a number of different reasons. I don't know why, because I have always, and I know you have too, since we have a background in that, have always included it as part and parcel of one's retirement portfolio. But the mainstream has not institutionalized it like they have, like for example, PIMCO is institutionalized bonds in a portfolio. But today, with interest rates at record lows, we know what happens to bonds when interest rates go up. Why wouldn't somebody want to have some kind of fixed insurance contract that doesn't go down when interest rates go up? It only goes which way? Goes up and floats with the higher interest rates.
Correct. I was yesterday. I was at a company meeting, a group of financial planners that got together. They get together every year at this time.
I'm sorry you had to go through
for a conference.
Yeah, I've been at so many of those meetings. I'm very, very sorry you had to do that.
Well, I only was there for a short period of time. Our firm was presenting there, and I went there to watch the other two guys that were making the presentation in this particular case. But I've known this firm for years and done business. And afterwards, we were standing around talking and having some coffee, and the guy comes up and asks me some questions, and we arranged to get together to do a case design. And he says, I'm really a fan of insurance. And I said, well, that's great. And he says, yeah. He says, I haven't done anything for 5 or 6 years, but I'm going to get back into this. And I said, imagine what would happen if you hated insurance.
Yeah.
The point is it's not it isn't a mainstream item as far as the people working in the industry are concerned, unless they're insurance salesmen. And that's a shame because their clients miss out.
They do indeed. Gene Pastula, he's the man. SafeMoneyMonitor.com. We're going to come back with more. I've got tons more to talk with Gene about. SafeMoneyMonitor.com is his website. I got the hippie shakes. Yeah, speaking of a hippie, I've got the consummate hippie in the studio with me. Gene Pastula, certified financial planner from SafeMoneyMonitor.com. If you want information, by the way, on annuities, life insurance policies, linked benefits, long-term health care, he's got everything. He services some 6,000 brokers nationwide. He's the guy that they run to get information. Gene Pastula at SafeMoneyMonitor.com. Gene, welcome back. I want to read you a little bit from this headline because I know this is something near and dear to your heart. How nursing homes collect debts, seizing guardianship. I just saw this. I think it was a Money Watch or Wall Street Journal, whatever. For some families, it says, the golden years are turning nightmarish thanks to a state law that some nursing homes are using to try to gain guardianship and financial control of their older patients. It's not an outcome that many people are aware of, according to a report from the New York Times and researchers at Hunter College. In a study of 700 guardianship cases filed in Manhattan over 10 years, the study found that more than 12% were for nursing homes seeking guardianship of patients. In some cases, the motive was apparently to gain control of the patient's assets to pay bills. This scares the bejeebers out of me because no one wants to think about having to fight off the nursing home from taking guardianship of your spouse who may be in that particular nursing home. They go on to tell a story of a woman by the name of Lillian Palermo, another one of my peeps, and how her husband was disputing a bill for whatever reason. They dropped her or whatever, I don't know. He was disputing the bill. And what happened was they went ahead and basically took guardianship, went to the courts. Hey, Mr. Palermo, Dino was his name. Again, I don't know that I would do that with Dino Palermo, but that's a different story. They took guardianship of his wife, and he ultimately did succumb and take guardianship back and pay them. But this is happening more and more frequently. You have a solution to that. Relate that to the 4 or 5 places we talked about stashing your emergency fund and protecting you so that, Dino, if you would have done this, you might not have had to have your wife, A, in a nursing home, and B, go through these hassles, because Gene has a really simple solution of just simply transferring your savings account, that emergency savings account, to a new account that he can tell you about.
Yeah, well, see, if you redo that article, you can do it from the nursing home side. They need to be paid,
right?
You know, so they're doing what they need to collect the money, and obviously Dino was a little short, and
short
that's
of
why,
cash. He's also short.
Maybe short. I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know what size he is, but
if he's Dino Palermo, he can't be more than 5'6".
Anyway, the point is that we're looking at a time in our lives for an awful lot of us, like 70% according to government statistics, and if you want to be conservative, 50%, but I'll take those odds any day in Vegas, 50-50.
Sure.
So that's a real likelihood that a great number of us are going to have to deal with this problem on some level. The idea of the last several months, years of your life needing to have assistance with what we call activities of daily living, just, you know, dressing yourself, feeding, bathing, etc. And it costs a lot of money. And of course, the nursing homes, it costs them to run those. So that's why that's going on. The traditional solution for this has always been to purchase long-term care insurance, which incidentally, the products that are available, and have been for the last dozen years or so, are really quite good and fairly priced considering the number of people who make claims on them. It's amazing. But for those people who are on that area of wealth where they honestly think, or they can imagine themselves being able to what we call self-insured. In other words, I don't need to buy insurance for this. I've got plenty of money. I'll just write checks. And that sounds really good when you're, 62 and really healthy. When you get to be 82 and you're looking at, can we get somebody to come in and take care of me? Oh, and you need to write that check for $9,000 a month. All of a sudden, that idea didn't seem so good, and that's what happens to us. So the idea is that if you have money where you think that is possible, that you could self-insure, we take it to the next step. Now, if you place that money properly into and you mentioned it earlier, a linked benefit life insurance policy, the cash value of that life insurance policy that you create by putting the money in there is the equivalent of any savings program, could go on that list very easy that we talked about in the last segment. It's safe and it's liquid and you know, you can get at it. It earns it earns a much better rate of return than those do at this point in time, and there's no tax on them. It's a very efficient cash account. And we put the money in there to earn interest. Typically, they're around 3.5% right now. That interest doesn't accumulate the money. That basically stays like it is, but it pays for benefits that, when needed for long-term care, typically will leverage the money you put in 3 or 4 times. You want to do your left pocket, right pocket?
So let me see. Yeah, Gene is the
I like him to do this part.
He's the run-on sentence guy. So basically, so think about it this way, folks. It's a savings account, okay? You take your money to the bank, and the bank today is going to give you 0.25%, right? Or you can take your money to Gene's bank, and they're going to give you 3.25% or 3.5%. So right off the bat, you're doing pretty good. Except that Gene's bank takes that 3 or 3.25%, and they actually buy this coverage for you. So if you put $100,000 in to Gene's bank, it instantly turns into $180,000 or $200,000 if you get hit by a bus and you die. But that's not going to happen to you. It's going to happen to him, right? So you also have that money, that $200,000 of so-called death benefit, accessible in the event that you need it for any of those so-called activities of daily living. You need home health care, you need to go into a nursing home, you need help bathing, eating, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, now, you blow through the $200,000 at $8,000 a month or whatever the number is. So a couple of years have gone by, all of that death benefit money has been accelerated, but because you have Alzheimer's, you're still fine physically, it's just mentally you're not making it. And you still need the $8,000-9,000 a month. What they did is they accelerated this thing to $400,000. So there's an extra $200,000 or $300,000 left in that bucket. So you've got the option. Go to XYZ Bank, earn your 0.25%. That's money in the bank that you know you can count on. You can get to it. It's liquid. Or you can go to the bank of Gene Pastula, or some big insurance company actually, and put that same $100,000, $50,000, $5,000, whatever the number is, into that bank. It earns interest, but if you die, couple $100,000 for your $100,000. If you get sick or disabled, you might have as much as $500,000, and all of the benefits are tax-free. So all Gene is asking you to do is this: the money in your left pocket at Bank of America, Chase Bank, Wells Fargo, they're all great banks, but that money that's sitting in your left pocket, just yank it out of your left pocket and put it into the Bank of Pastula. It's not his bank, but some big major insurance company, an insurance company that's probably as big or bigger than some of the banks that I just mentioned to you. And they'll give you the same amount or similar liquidity. You don't like them anymore, you can take the money out. A year or two, maybe. You might have to wait a year or two, depending on the state and the circumstance. But for the most part, that money is totally liquid. For the most part, that money is available to you by borrowing it, and you can put it back if you want to maintain the benefits, or you can just cash it out if you don't. So where's the risk? Take the money from your left pocket, Gene, put it in your right pocket. What do you think?
I think we need to change you to Mr. Run-On Sentence and me to, I don't know.
Host? You want to be host? You want to sit in this seat?
That was an outstanding presentation. That's the best one you've done. I like
okay,
that.
Good.
Yes.
I'm glad. You want to sit in this seat? Be my guest. It sounds easy and it looks easy.
No, it was.
But
it
it's
was,
not,
it was
because
good.
you've got only 10 seconds to get out of here. We'll be back. Don't go away with Gene Pastula at the Ray Lucia Show. Phone number 844-729-7469. If you want to talk about this, Gene Pastula, my special guest. Gene, how about you help me with some emails? You want to try that?
I'll give it a try.
You know, before I get to the emails, though, something that you said earlier reminded me, or maybe it was this article when I was talking about how individuals that own nursing homes and so forth can actually come in and take guardianship over the person that's there to get paid. And I get the fact that they do have to get paid. That's not the issue. But there's also this thing in about 30 states called the filial laws. Have you studied that at all?
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot of study. It's a fairly short thing, but basically what it's saying is, what they say is that that nursing homes can go after, or the state rather, can go after any assets that are left by the deceased who has been stored in a nursing facility for the last year or two or whatever on the state's dime. So
yeah, and I heard of a case out of I think it was Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where they actually went after the assets of one of the kids.
Yes.
To be able to pay for it, because you, under the filial laws, which date back to who knows what, where, you know, parents took care of the kids, and then later on the kids are supposed to take care of the parents. And it's not every state, but I think 3/4 of the states or more have these filial laws. Doesn't mean they're going to do it, but it's a little bit frightening. But when you think about the numbers of baby boomers that are bankrupting Social Security, Medicare, and all that stuff, you have to believe that sooner or later that kind of stuff could happen.
Well, earlier we were talking about, you know, what the mainstream thinks about insurance or doesn't think about it, as far as, is it in the same category as other investments and all the rest of the stuff. And when you come down to this, the common knowledge is that if you can get the government to pay for it, that's what you do. Whether it's, I don't know, whether it's the right thing or not, it's becoming that, and it's very difficult for the states to pick up the tab on people who are having to live in a nursing facility for 3, 4, 5 years, and more and more and more of them. So they're using these laws because what's happening is that the family is arranging their assets in such a way as to allow them to keep the money and qualify for Medicaid. And so that's an opportunity now for the state to go back and say, well, wait a minute, okay, we paid these bills all this time, but your dad had a house and you had these assets and what have you, and the law says that you're responsible, and so we're going after it.
Let's take this email from Brian in Federal Way, Washington. I received an annuity after my uncle passed away, and now I'm receiving forms 1099-R and 1099-INT. I thought I would get the step up in basis after his death. Thanks for your help, and I never miss the show. Well, that's a good thing, Brian. I'm glad you never miss the show, because if you miss one show, you miss a lot. Here's the problem. An annuity is a tax deferral. It's not a capital asset. Therefore, there is no step up in basis. So here's what happens. When you buy stock or real estate or some capital asset, a business per se, and you die under current law, now Mr. Obama would like to change this, but let's just stick with what we have right now. Under current law, if you paid $100 for the stock, and the stock is now worth $1,000, and you pass that stock along upon your death, the beneficiary would receive that stock with a basis of $1,000. So there would be no capital gain. Now, if you purchase an annuity, and I'll get to an interesting point on this in a second. If you purchase an annuity for $100 and it grows to $1,000 and you die, that $900 gain is taxed as not capital gain, but ordinary income to the beneficiary. It's called income in respect to a decedent. So you pay ordinary income tax on that $900. If you've got 5 years to work it out with the insurance company, take it out in lump sum, take it out each year for 5 years, but by the end of the 5th year, all of the money has got to come out. Gene Pastula, this is one of the reasons why individuals, when they're considering an annuity as part of their, quote, investment or asset allocation, especially if they're talking about leaving the money to the heirs, might be better suited to use a life insurance policy than a deferred annuity.
Right. In fact, we have a lot of situations where we encourage the individual who already has these annuities, and if this is an important issue for that person, and they've got a reasonably good health enough to qualify for a life insurance policy, then we can sit down and show them how, if they'll go ahead and terminate this annuity now and pay the tax on whatever gain they've got so far, when you put that into a life insurance policy, just like in the last segment we were talking about linked benefit, it increases the value at death as a life insurance. And if we can, we'll put the long-term care rider on it and provide more benefit, even all income tax free. So now what you've done is you've paid your taxes. And from now on, all appreciation, all gain that comes to your heirs will in fact be tax-free, no 1099s.
You know, I've got an idea for you and me and a few of my other pals. I think we ought to take this show on the road and show people some of these strategies in black and white. Maybe I'll do it on the air, we can explain it, but you wouldn't mind, like, hopping on a plane and
I'll tag along.
You tag along, would you?
Yeah.
Would you pay my airfare? No, just kidding. We may put a little road trip.
I thought we were going on your private plane.
Okay, first we got to get the private plane. Okay.
Let's work on
listen, folks. Gene Pastula, super smart guy, and these strategies, he's got a million of them. He pulls them out like there's no tomorrow. So here's what I want you to do: go to safemoneymonitor.com and ask Gene to help you. And send him your situation. Maybe you've got a stock and it's got a bunch of gain. You don't want to sell it because of the capital gain, but it's an asset that you're thinking about leaving to the kids anyway. You might benefit by one of his serious money strategies. Or perhaps you do have an annuity and you want to convert that into a tax-free benefit. Or you've got that emergency fund sitting in the old left pocket. He can show you how to move it to the right pocket and take care of your family in the event that you become sick or disabled. Check Gene out. Well, you don't have to check Gene out, but check out his website, safemoneymonitor.com.